news. I probably owe some of you some points, okay? As I was going through this morning, I found some things that maybe didn't get auto-graded correctly. So I'm going to go back and I will try to double check, but still nobody's probably going to get 100%. So we're all going to retest it just to make sure, and hopefully I'll write a smoother test the next time for Monday. Let's see, we're going to do, where did it go? Where did it go? It was unit 1. That's why I can't find it. There it is. Okay. So we're going to go question by question. Keep in mind that there are multiple versions of questions. You may or may not see the exact same numbers as your question, but it should be the same idea. And remember, homework 55 is test corrections. So as you're doing this, you should be doing your test corrections a little bit. Make sure you write down in your test corrections why you got it wrong. I did see a lot of people, especially when we get to the last couple problems, that were writing the problems down wrong. So you were getting it wrong. Okay. And I know some of us are from second, some of us are from third. Second period, today we're going to go over kind of a targeted review of a few of these items that we need to really hone in on. So that's what we're doing in class today. So you're going to see kind of the same thing again in a little while. All right, we are going to determine the value of C. And at any time, you guys, please, please, please use the chat. Come off your microphone. If I am doing something that you do not understand, you need to stop me and let me know, okay? And if you guys notice I am not looking up at the chat, you got to tell me, okay? Because I want to make sure that we are 100% on this test. We want another A in the grade book before the end of the triad, okay? So, which is next Friday. So determine the value of C. So what I have to do is I have to take the limit, officially I have to take the limit of both sides. Please, on every single problem, please write work. If I mess up completely and the multiple choice answers aren't there, I'm going to have to turn that problem into free response. If you have nothing written down, then I can't give you any points for it. So it happens, all right? So every once in a while. So I'm going to do the limit. When it's less than, that's from the left. So that I put a little minus sign on the notation. I'm always going to practice proper notation. When it's greater than, I know that's the right branch. So I have to examine the limit from the left and limit from the right. And if it's going to be continuous, we know that the definition is that those limits have to be equal. So I'm going to use this equation for my left limit. So x minus 2 equals the limit as x approaches 5, and then from the right is a plus sign as my notation. Okay, and then I'm going to plug this guy in, cx minus 5. Okay. I am now going to simply just plug these values in for x. I'm not worried about c because that's what I need to solve for. So I've got 5 minus 2 equals c times 5 minus 5. 5 minus 2 is 3. I get 5c minus 5. I'm going to add the...
Wait, Miss Bella, isn't it minus 3?
Look at what I did wrong. See how easy that is, you guys? Look at what I did. Totally messed it up, didn't I? I luckily had done the problem once today, so I knew I was on the wrong track somewhere because I wasn't getting the same answer. All right, so see how easy that was? Look at what I did. I wrote this down instead of this, okay? It can happen to all of us, all right? So please, 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 you have to triple check what you're writing down because you're not just looking, I'm actually looking at my screen and I can write on my screen. You guys have to take it, transfer it from screen to paper, and you have to get good at that. We don't know. Right now they're saying it's a pencil paper AP test. We don't know what's happening in the spring. What if they change it to online? You have to be able to practice the skill, okay? So let's make sure, triple check, okay? I don't know who came on, but thank you, okay? All right, so we've got to add the 3 to the other side. We get 6 equals 5c, and I'm going to divide by the 5, so I get 6/5 c. It should have been answer choice B in this case, okay? I'll leave it there for a few seconds. All right, the next question, I was trying to get creative and ask one question and get a lot of interesting information out of it, but for some reason, when I thought I was doing something good, something not great happened with this one. There's a couple of them that I don't think ended up having an answer, even though there was an intended answer for them. So I probably owe everybody like 50 points back on this one, okay? So I will go back in, and once, if your score doesn't change enough, I will go back in and examine that, okay? So just know that there's probably in here, there's some issues. So it says that we're supposed to match the statement that best fits. So I'm going to examine these statements. It looks like I've got some numbers. I've got some stuff about horizontal, and I've got some stuff about vertical asymptotes. So I'm going to use this kind of like a multiple choice question strategy on this one. I could use process of elimination. First thing I'm noticing is that there's vertical asymptotes and horizontal asymptotes. If I have a horizontal asymptote, help me out in the chat. What should that look like? X equals or Y equals? It's horizontal. What kind of how do we write a horizontal line? It's got to be good. Okay, Erica's on it. She says Y equals. Good job. I got a lot more. Erica was just the first. Good job, good job, good job. Which means that vertical has to be X equals. So I'm just going to examine the statements. A function has a horizontal asymptote. How can I be horizontal and be X equals? This one is totally false no matter what. And I haven't even looked at the problems yet. Okay. Vertical says it's X equals, horizontal Y equals. Okay, so that's our only possibility for horizontal, is that Y has to equal -1. And then at vertical at X equals -1. So we've already got it down to the fact that we got to get rid of an answer, okay? And we know that if there's a horizontal asymptote, the horizontal asymptote has to be at Y equals -1. So I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna examine my horizontal asymptotes. I'm going to kind of do a lot of the thinking in, my head. So I'm going to be looking at this. I know that they all have to be Y equals no matter what I do on this, right? Because it's a horizontal. So I'm going to figure out that horizontal asymptote. Really, when I figure out the horizontal asymptote, aren't I also finding the limit at the same time? Because the horizontal asymptote really has to do with that limit as X approaches infinity, and all of them are X approaches infinity. So we're going to kill two birds with one stone, okay? I am noticing on this first one that I have the highest exponent is 4, and that the coefficients are -1 and 1. So I would know that this is -1 over 1 or -1, which means my horizontal asymptote is Y equals -1 and my limit is -1. Okay. I am not noticing a limit of -1, but I definitely have this vertical or this horizontal asymptote question. So I just need to double check that there's nothing else that would fit that horizontal asymptote at -1, because I think that this is horizontal asymptote X equals -1. All right, but let's just double check these other ones, and we'll get our other limits as we're going through it, and that'll maybe eliminate or get us some more answer choices. This one here, I noticed the bigger number is on the top, or the bigger exponent's on the top, so I know that that has to go to infinity. There's nothing else I can really do with that one. This one, the bigger one, is on the bottom. So I know that that would make this horizontal asymptote 0, or this limit 0. This one here, I have to look at the square root. So I am noticing that I have -3 x over square root of 81 is 9, and square root of x squared is x. So it's looking like this one would be -1/3 as our limit and our horizontal asymptote. And then this one here, the number is bigger on the top, so that would mean it's also going to infinity. Okay. All right. So I'm looking at that. I definitely am confident in this answer right here. Okay. I'm also going to go through and look at my answer choices, and I am definitely noticing this -1/3. So that's got to be this one here, is -1/3. I am noticing a 0, and I don't see anything else that's going to be 0, nor do I see the vertical asymptote. So I think I have a typo down here where it should have been 0. So I think that if you got 0 on this one, or you were looking at 0, that one is probably correct. I don't think that there was an answer. I had the answer in there as 1, was what I looked when I looked at the answer key. So I don't think that there's a correct answer. So again, I owe you guys some points. Okay. All right, the other two are infinity, and I did have an infinity that I could have drug into either spot, and I think the way I had it set, you could only drag one. So this one is definitely the one. This is the one I intended to be infinity. This one, I think that there was a typo on the problem. It should have really had like a negative there. So that's probably what I would aim for on the next test. The intent was to have a vertical asymptote right here. But even the number doesn't I think if I had a negative there, then the vertical asymptote at x equals -3 would have made sense. So, but on the actual test, there was no answer. X equals -3. But for our version of the test, we had no answer probably. Okay, so I apologize for that. I'm showing my humanness all over the place this year. All right, let's look at the next one. It's another one of these kind of process of elimination. I think there was a slight typo in one of the choices on this one here, okay? I think there might have been an issue with my graph actually on this one. So probably the intent, and I don't know why it didn't come across in this particular problem, was to have a hole in the graph right there, okay? It only threw one of them up, and again, I will probably give you I can give you a few points back on this one too, okay? So I'd probably just a blanket, go, oh, everybody like a 75-point bump, and then I will compare the two test scores, okay? So X equals -3, or so we had three things, right? We had the original function, which is this graph. We had a F function and an H, or G function and an H function. And that's very typical. The AP test will mix the different types of things together. In fact, we could have put a table in there too, that didn't quite make sense for this type of problem, okay? So we're looking at our F function, and we're looking at what's going on at -3. So I'm noticing -3 looks like it has an asymptote. And I just have to decide what kind of discontinuity is there. So help me out in the chat. Is that asymptote, is that removable or non-removable? Good job. That is a non-removable discontinuity. And that one was grading fine. Okay. All right. And then I'm looking at G of 2 now. So I'm going up to G, or G as we're approaching. It says the limit as we are approaching 2, which I know I can't plug in because look at that denominator. So I'm going to actually find the limit as G of X. Oh, what am I doing? That's not the way you write limits, Mrs. Ballard. Limit as X approaches 2 of X cubed minus 6X plus 8 over X minus 2. All right, help me out. It's Friday. I'm not feeling like factoring very much today. So you guys factor that numerator and tell me what you get, please. Yes, it's supposed to be X squared. See, I did it again. Okay, but you can still factor. Factor now that it's X squared. X cubed, not so factorable, but X squared is, there we go. Okay, awesome. X minus 2, X minus 4. Perfect. All right, so we are going to cancel. When it cancels, we know that we call that a hole. Is that removable or non-removable? Tell me in the chat. A hole is something that is removable, correct? Okay, so removable. All right. The next one, limit as X approaches -7 of F of X. So I really have to be careful and read. I'm going to go back to my graph. Now, the first one thing I looked at this morning is my eyeball went here. And I made the mistake. I'm like, no, there's no way that is non-removable. What was I thinking? But then I realized that that was at -6. Okay. And I know that some of you probably had -6. Some of you may have had -1. That's non-removable, right? And 5 is non-removable. I purposely put a bunch of non-removables on there so I could change it up. Okay. But at -7, there really should have been another choice, because the way your original problem is it had, whatchamacallit, it had a line. I really should have had a choice that said continuous. So that's my fault, okay? What the intent was to have a hole there, and a hole there is something that's removable. So the intent was a removable, okay? So I would say look for a graph that's going to have some holes in it, probably, okay? All right. Okay, can you find it? Get a new marker. Okay. This is why you got to put your stuff in. Oh, you're fine. Okay. He was just out there doing algebra. It literally was an algebra lesson, and he's in the 3rd grade. And it kept saying algebra in the lesson. All right. I'm just hoping I don't have to teach him calculus when he's a 6th grader. I don't know if I can handle him in class yet. All right, his teacher does a fabulous job. All right, x equals, x approaches -2 of h of x. So now I'm plugging into this. Oh, we got a factor again. Okay. Factor it while I'm writing it down. So limit as x is approaching. It was -2 this time. I've got an x plus 2 on the bottom. It was x squared minus 5x plus 6. Tell me what you get once you factor it. Make sure you're careful when you factor, because you don't want to make any assumptions on this one. All right, there we go. X minus 2x plus 3. Okay, so now you got to ask yourself, does it cancel? And I purposely have it in there. Look at that. Look at how close this is and how easy it is for your eyeball to read that as something that cancels, because it's the same number but with opposite signs. Okay, it was done on purpose to trick you. Okay, I don't want to trick you, but I want you to be aware of those pitfalls. It's going to happen on the AP test. Okay, so we cannot cancel anything. That means that this is left behind as a vertical asymptote. Okay, so, and is a vertical asymptote removable or non-removable? Tell me in the chat. It is, in fact, non-removable. Okay, good job. All right, looking at this one here, okay, you get bonus stars today if you can tell me what this one was really truly about and what I was testing here. So it says, let f be a function that is continuous on the closed interval from 1 to 3. With f of 1 equals 10 and f of 3 equals 18, which of the following statements must be true? And I have that 10 is less than or equal to f of 2 is less than or equal to 18. F is increasing on the interval from 1 to 3. F of x equals 17 has at least one solution in the interval from 1 to 3. And f of 2 equals 14. Marilyn is going to get the gold stars for the day because she told me that this is an intermediate value theorem problem, and she is correct. Okay. A lot of you read the continuous problem at the end as IVT, and it was not an IVT problem. All right. But if you didn't remember the IVT, okay, because this is the definition right here, right? Doesn't that sound just like the intermediate value theorem? At least one solution. That is the intermediate value theorem right there. Okay. If you didn't remember that, we could still prove the other ones wrong. Like we could come up with a counterexample. So let's draw our picture. I'm going to show you the counterexample, and then I'm going to draw a picture with what C is actually looking like. So I had 1 and 10, right? Doesn't matter if it's a scale. This is a picture for you to be able to figure out the problem, okay? And then it says I've got 3 and 18. And that's all I need to know. Okay, so I've got those 2 points on the graph. This is saying that the y value for f of 2, so if I put 2 on the graph, that the y value has to be between 10 and 18. But check out what I could draw. Couldn't I draw it like this? And now the y value is not between 10 and 18. So this is definitely a false statement. It doesn't have to necessarily be true. Okay. Then it says its f is increasing. Well, look at the picture I drew. It's definitely not an increasing between 1 and 2. I can draw it without it being increasing. So that one is also false. Okay. I'm going to look at this one here next, D next, and then we're going to talk about C. So f of 2 is 14. So they're saying the y value has to be 14. Absolutely not. I drew it without the y value even at 10 yet. So false. Okay, so it has to be the one solution. So if I were to draw this one, okay, actually I don't even need to draw the counterexample or the example of it. At least one solution. Well, this is a solution, okay. But what they're saying is at least one solution that hits 17. So if I think about the picture that I have drawn here, 17 is here, the y value, and there is at least one time between there, even though mine kind of looks like it's at 3, that it does in fact equal the y value of 17. I cannot get from 10 to 18 without crossing over it somehow. I could have drawn it crazy, right? I could have had my 2 dots and I could have done it like this, right? I would have crossed 17 no matter what I tried to do, okay, in order to get from point A to point B. Okay, so it has to be answer choice C. So you're looking at the one that sounds like the intermediate value theorem. All right, hopefully I'm making sense. All right, we're already down to the last 2 problems, okay? And these 2 went hand in hand. You had to get the first one right to kind of get a jump on the second one. I had more people with more success on the first one than the second one. But the people who weren't being successful on the first one were not copying it down right. And you've already seen me make 2 mistakes on not copying something down right as we're doing this in the last 20 minutes, okay? So it's very, very easy to make a copy error, all right? And I know I probably made up the terminology copy error, but I am okay if that's the reason, if that's in our brains, then we had that collective vocabulary in the class. If you're writing out your test corrections, you say, I made a copy error, and I know that means you copied it down wrong, okay? I had people leave off the coefficient. I had people make a lot of arithmetic, and then I had people make arithmetic mistakes, okay? So if I'm doing a piecewise function, okay? And I have to find the limit as x is approaching 2 of f of x. And I don't like the way Otis puts the notation. I hate the notation where they do a little subscript instead of it being underneath. So I'm sorry, we just have to live with it. I can't do anything about that. Because I don't think like Google Forms is any better, and Google Forms is terrible to submit. What I need to know is, what do I need to do in order to find the limit of a piecewise? So tell me in the chat, what do you remember us having to do in order to find the limit of a piecewise? What am I going to have to write down? Good job. Okay, we aren't going to put the equations equal to each other, but we are going to do left and right. But Jaden, thank you for making an attempt. Okay, I appreciate it. All right, so we did, if you were in the 3rd period, we did this yesterday in class. I was very specific to make sure we understood this. So the limit as x approaches, and it should be this number right here. Whatever number the split is at is the number that should be here. If that's not coming up that way, you guys, you need to get on the chat with me and say, Mrs. Ballard, you messed up. Okay, there's something not right with this problem. And I wish you guys would have done that on the next one, because nobody said anything, and then it's messed up. There's a mistake in it. It's an easy one to fix, but there's a mistake in it. All right, limit as x approaches 2. Okay, and I'm going to go from the left, and in this case, my left again is my top branch, so I'm using this function. So 3x minus 2. And then I'm going to actually plug the 2 in. So I get 3 times 2 minus 2. And 3 times 2 is 6 minus 2, which is 4. Now I'm going to go to the bottom branch, which is the right branch. And so I'm going to write, and I have to see this limit notation, okay? You need to write it out, all right? Even if you need an extra box on your paper, you need to write all this stuff out, okay? This is more like what a free response problem would be, and I'm looking for the steps. So the limit as x is approaching 2 from the right of 2x squared minus 8x plus 12. And I'm going to go ahead and plug in the 2 now. So 2 times 2 squared minus 8 times 2 plus 12. And even when I was doing this morning, I wrote, instead of writing 2 squared, I'm like, oh, I'm a lazy mathematician. I wrote 4. And then guess what I accidentally wrote in that box there? I wrote a 4. Okay, so it happens to the best of us when we work quick and under pressure. You're gonna make little mistakes, and you got to be careful. Okay, so 2 squared is 4 times 2 is 8. Negative 8 times 2 is 16 plus 12, and we get 4. I had some of you just stop and say, hey, that limit doesn't exist. I am not going to give you one on purpose that the limit doesn't exist. If it doesn't exist, I messed up. Okay, so you need to go back and double check. If you get does not exist, you need to go back and double check that you wrote down everything correctly. Okay, so then we would say something like, therefore, the limit as x approaches 2 overall of f of x is in fact equal to 4, because my right and my left are equal. You don't have to write because the right and the left are equal, because you proved that to me in your lineage of work. Okay. That was that one. The next one, we had to prove continuity. Okay, so we had to prove continuous. I don't want to go too fast. I want to make sure we're all getting it down, but I know we've only got a couple minutes left. And you're all awake early, so although are we all going back to bed for first period? Is that the plan? I have to go put my Halloween costume back on because my even periods didn't get to see it yesterday. So I don't know if I've won. I don't think I won the contest. All right. So we're going to consider this function again. There is a major typo right here. Doesn't that look kind of weird? When I go and I write the questions and I put different numbers in there, that's one of my variables that's supposed to be generating a new number. So something messed up in the, either I messed up or the system somehow didn't put the number in there. It should be obvious. What number should go in there? Tell me in the chat, what number do you think should go in there? Yeah, good job. So part of being able to recognize that one of my typos in a problem is being able to know what that problem should look like, right? So you're doing a very good job. It was all ladies. Very good job, ladies. All right, so we are going to go to, we're going to plug a 2. It really should be a 2 right there, okay? So if that happens again, you get on the chat, Mrs. Ballard, you messed up, okay? Be nice about it, right? But hey, I think you have a typo on this problem, and I will immediately go check it. During the test, I'm not doing much of anything else. So I'd like to, but I'd like to like grade homework while you're doing the test, but that never happens. In 20 years, it's never happened. So you got to tell me, and I will go and look at it, and I will be able to get back to you and say, hey, no, I think it's okay, or I need to post to the whole class, hey, there's this typo, and we need to just use this here, okay? All right. I'm so sorry, Marilyn. You have to let me know. And I know second period, I don't remember what period you're in, but I know second period it's an issue because I'm teaching BC at the same time you guys are taking your test, right? It's okay to interrupt, and BC understands it because guess what? When they take their tests, I'm teaching your class. I'm watching 2 things at once, okay? So we're just gonna have a little forgiveness for one another when we have to go back and forth like that, okay? So you gotta ask me, it's okay, all right? It's E is close to 2 though, right? It's 2.718, but it was supposed to be a 2, okay? All right, so let's just follow the process. And those of you that left the E in there and followed the process, I think I gave you most of the credit for the problem because AP would too. If you messed up but you followed the process, sometimes they will, even if you have a wrong number, they will let you carry that wrong number through. So we've got the limit. I'm just going to restate what we had there. We know that the limit as x approaches 2 of f of x equals 4, and that proves its existence, right? I now need to prove the existence of f of 2. So f of 2 means I'm going to have to plug into this branch here. Yes, I know we already did it earlier, but you're going to show me the calculation again because that's the proper way to do the math, okay? And we know that even if you show me the plug-in and you go right to the 4, we're okay. Then you have to tell me the statement that the limit, oops, that's not what I wanted, the limit as x approaches 2 of f of x equals f of 2. Even if you didn't tell me that it equaled 4, you could also put like the equal 4 in the middle if you wanted. That's fine. Both of those are good statements. As long as you tell me that, then you have to make the final conclusion that you've proved that they were continuous. So say, therefore, f of x is continuous. And I think when we were doing this in class, we did like 1, 2, 3 in our notes kind of thing. If you number, I'm not going to worry about the numbers, but you can do that. Okay. All right. Do I have any other questions, comments, concerns? That is the rest of the unit 1 that we are going to retest on Monday. I know I haven't regraded your other retest. I had to get this one out there first. Hopefully this weekend. Okay. All right. If I don't have anything else, I appreciate it. We've got like 32 of us that showed up. Okay, so I will see some of you later today. Third period, if you want to pop in today, I'll be there. My plan is to maybe answer some progress check questions during third period, and I will invite second period to that too as well. So you guys are all welcome to come to that. And I'll be around I will be around from 3 to 3:30 to work on progress checks too. Okay, we can write a short version when we make those statements correct, like the 3 dots. So you mean like say, instead of saying therefore, you write the 3 dots, Marilyn? Is that what you're asking about? Yeah, you can write therefore, the 3 dots. That abbreviation's okay. IVT is okay. I don't, there are some things like I write the @ symbol like this, Marilyn, and because you really should be writing those words out, okay? All right, Fallon, I don't know if I'm thinking about reformatting that question and not writing it that way. I was too creative, okay? So I'm thinking about being a little bit more straightforward. Does that sound better? Okay. I might split that into 2 questions. I might still do like the matching thing for the limit question and then be a little bit more straightforward. It might actually get split into 3 questions. I don't know. I might be being a little bit more straightforward about the asymptotes. Okay. I'm also going to give you guys more time. Why do we use, for number 2, why do we use the bottom equation? Going back to number 2. I don't know where number 2 is. 1, 2. All right, so why do we use the bottom on all of them, Genesis? The last question. Oh, okay, sorry. The last question. Okay, you have to use the bottom equation because it said we had to evaluate at 2, and that's where the equals to was. Okay, Genesis? All right, any other questions, comments, concerns? All right. If there's nothing else, I will see you all, some of you later today, hopefully, okay? And we'll do progress check and a little bit more review on this if you're coming to a second period today. You're welcome, Marilyn. Absolutely. That's why I'm here. This is why I don't get anything graded, but it's why I'm here. I will try to get it up on YouTube as soon as possible. Like, I can't until the meet's over. It takes like 20-30 minutes after the meet's over for it to process through Google. Okay. So Fallon, if it's not up by 3 o'clock, will you please bug me and remind me I got to put it up? Okay. Yes, bug me about it, and make sure if it's not up literally at 3 o'clock. Okay, because I still have a meeting at 3 o'clock, so I can sit here and do it during the meeting. Okay, or actually I'm supposed to see you guys. So, okay. Oh, absolutely, guys. I'm glad you showed up.